Hi, it is Monday again, and I am here with another story. I hope you all had a really good week last week. My hair's gone a bit kind of mad and fluffy today, so I'm trying and keep it out my face, but so it's got a mind of its own today. But yeah, I hope you're doing well, and I am back for another story, and this story is called The Garden. It's called The Garden. So I'm going to do my usual thing, and I'm just going to type hi into the comments so that I can see any comments that come up. There we go. I don't know why that's the thing these days, but that seems to work so that I can see them pop up, otherwise they don't pop up on my phone. So I am going to tell a story today about a very special garden, and it's one that I wrote with a nursery, I think. It was a nursery or a primary school, a long time ago, about a year ago. And yeah, I hope you enjoy it. So I'm going to tell you the story of the garden. Before I start, there's less participatory action in this one, but I am going to get you to contribute a little bit. So if you are watching and you want to type something, you can. But if I don't say anything, don't worry. Like that's okay as well today. So yeah, this is the story of the garden. Now I want you to imagine a garden. I want you to think about the most beautiful garden that you have ever seen, and what sort of things you might find in that garden. What sort of things do you see in a beautiful garden? When I think of a garden, I think of lots and lots of colourful flowers. I really love colourful flowers. At the moment I've got lots of yellow flowers and blue flowers, and I've got a really tall sunflower as well at the moment. It's about 7 foot tall. It's very big, and it still hasn't got a flower on the end, but I can just imagine those lovely yellow petals as well. And I think of lots of green grass, really luscious, maybe a little bit squishy underfoot, a little bit soft, and I always think of somewhere to sit, somewhere nice to sit, where it's nice and quiet and relaxing. That's my sort of garden. And I also think about the sort of foods that I could grow in a garden. So maybe that's something you like as well. Maybe you've grown some vegetables or some fruits in your garden, or maybe you've got a windowsill garden and you've grown some fruits or some herbs or something. I've got basil and lettuce and there's a cherry tree next door, but it overhangs our garden, so we get some cherries as well in the summer. So a beautiful, gorgeous garden. And there was an idyllic garden in a village a very long time ago. And a girl was walking along one day when she discovered the garden hidden behind an old stone wall that nobody had really looked over before. And she saw this beautiful garden. Oh, and she just had to climb the wall and go inside. And that's exactly what she did. She climbed the wall and hopped over the other side, and she sat on the softest grass she had ever felt, and she looked at all the beautiful colours of flowers there were. There were beautiful pink ones and orange ones and purple ones and blue ones, all in different rows and different sizes, with some that had big green leaves and some that had small spiny leaves. It was beautiful. And then just off down a little path, she saw there was a vegetable patch, like a vegetable garden. And there were carrots and potatoes and onions and all sorts of vegetables growing there. And then she saw fruit trees. She saw apples and plums and oh my goodness, there was raspberry plants and strawberries. Lots of delicious things. And of course, when you've got a garden or a wildlife space, there are lots of animals too. And she could see squirrels hiding in the tree and grabbing some of the fruits. She could see insects in the undergrowth walking through and helping themselves to any fallen fruits. She saw bees helping themselves to the honey and the nectars of the trees, and she saw them going off to their hive to make delicious golden honey. It was a beautiful place, and she wanted to take something to bring home with her to remind her of this beautiful place. And so she decided to make a bouquet of flowers. She went to the flowers and she picked her favourite colours. She picked blue and orange and purple and pink, and she wrapped them in a hair tie that she had with her and took them away. And she climbed back over the wall and was walking down the street when a man saw these beautiful flowers. She had a big bouquet as big as her head of different flowers, and he had never seen any florist selling those before. So he tapped her on the shoulder and asked, "Where did you get that gorgeous bouquet? I haven't seen any flowers like that in this village." The girl looked around. "Okay," she said, "I will tell just you, but try and keep it a secret." And she told the man about the garden and how she'd climbed over that wall. He decided that he was going to go and do the same thing. So he said thank you to the girl, and off he went, and he climbed the wall and jumped over into that beautiful garden. Oh, but it wasn't the flowers that he liked best. Oh no, what he liked best was the vegetable patch. There were so many vegetables, and he decided he was going to make a stew. So he pulled up the carrots, and he pulled up the turnips, and he pulled up the potatoes. He got as many vegetables as his arms could carry, and he started to throw them over the wall, and then climbed up and then scooped them all back in his arms and walked back home down the street. Now, as he was walking down the street with his arms laden with all the vegetables you could think of, a woman saw and thought, "Oh, is that sweet onions? I haven't seen onions that big in our greengrocer." And so she asked the man, "Where did you get those delicious looking onions? They look amazing." "Well," he said, "don't tell everybody, but..." And he told her about the garden that the girl had told him about. Oh. Well, the woman liked the sound of this garden, and so she went to go and discover it herself. And she climbed over the wall, and as she hopped down, oh my goodness, she could not believe her eyes, all the colours and the smells and the fruit trees. She loved fruit, and she decided that she was going to take some of the fruit and make the most delicious fruity pie that she could. And that's exactly what she did. She picked all of the strawberries and all of the blueberries and all of the blackberries, and she got half an apple tree's worth of apples down, and she put them all into her rucksack, and she took them away with her. Now, as she was walking down the street, a boy could smell some delicious fruit, and he could see that she was holding the most beautiful red apple in her hand and eating it on the way home. "Miss, where did you get that delicious looking apple? I haven't seen apples red as that in our supermarkets at all." "Oh, well," she said, don't tell anybody. Zip! And she showed him all of the fruit in her rucksack and told him about the garden. Now he liked the sound of that. Sweet things were, his favourite thing ever. So he decided to go as well. And he climbed up the wall and he dropped down. Oh my goodness. There he saw some bumblebees, and they were going off and taking some honey. I want some of that honey, he decided. So he went to their hive and he peered inside and he got a honeycomb, as much as he could hold in his hand, and he took it away with him. And he walked down the street and he went home and he poured as much honey in the jars as he could. Now, there was a problem. You see, the girl who had picked the flowers at the very beginning, well, she had this beautiful big bouquet, but the flowers started to die. And she didn't really care or think much of it. She thought, oh well, I can just go and get more. So as soon as the flowers started to wilt, she threw them away and she went back to the garden, and again she took a massive bouquet as big as her head and she took it back home with her and did the same thing and put it in a jar and just had it on her windowsill. And then the same thing happened to the man who'd taken all the vegetables. He only used about a quarter, a small amount of the vegetables that he'd taken with him, and the rest of them, well, they started to get really old in his pantry. They started to get a bit smelly, and a bit mouldy. Oh no. Oh well, he thought, I can always just get some more from that garden. So he got the rotten vegetables and he threw them in the bin. And he went back to the garden, and again he filled up a big basket this time of all the vegetables that he could carry and took it away. And do you remember the lady with all the fruit? Well, she had her pie, and at the end she only used maybe about half of the fruits, if that she'd picked, and the rest of them were sat in her fruit bowl, and they started getting really old and rotten, and flies started buzzing around her house and eating the rotten fruit. Oh, gross, yuck! Oh well, she said, I will just be able to get some more from that beautiful garden. So she got the rotten fruits and she threw them in the bin, and she went back to the garden and she filled up her rucksack again of loads and loads of fruit and took it away with her. And then there was the boy and his honey, and he'd eaten all of that honey. Oh, his tummy was so full. And so he decided, well, what's the harm in getting more? And he went back to the garden, and this time he'd brought lots of jars with him, and he took as much honey as he could, jars and jars of it, and he got it and took it home. Well, this kept happening for quite a while, a long, long time. And when the girl who got the flowers went back one day, there weren't any flowers anymore. In fact, there were just brown stubs in the grass where the flowers used to be, and lots of mud, but with nothing in it. And when she listened, she couldn't hear any birds anymore, and she couldn't smell any nice smells of flowers and fruits, and there wasn't any buzzing insects either. The grass had started to go brown. Oh dear. Well, that's that, she thought, and she climbed over the wall and she never went back. The man went, and he had a look for more vegetables, because some of his vegetables had gone rotten again. And the same thing. All of the allotment where the vegetables were, all the soil was turned up, but there were no vegetables, and the soil was dry. Oh dear. Well, that's that then. And he went home. And the lady with the fruits, she looked, and the trees were bare, and there weren't any strawberries left. They'd all gone brown and crispy. Well, that's that then, she thought, and she went home. And the boy with the honey, he went back, and the hive had gone. There were no bees anymore. Well, that's that then. And the boy went home. Now these 4 people, they sat there, and they really wanted those beautiful flowers and those fruits and those vegetables and that honey again. But there wasn't anything there anymore. And the girl with the flowers started to think. And she was looking at her vase. She realised she maybe took too much. She decided to go and find the man who she'd told about the garden, and she knocked on his door and explained, I went to my garden and there was nothing there. And the man said, oh yes, I noticed the same thing. And they talked about what had happened. The man realised that maybe he'd taken too many vegetables, because now when he looked in his bin there was a big pile of vegetables, all old and rotten. Oh dear. Well, he told the girl about the lady, and then the lady told them about the boy, and the 4 of them sat together and they came up with a plan. They went to the shops and they got buckets and spades and watering cans and seeds, and they went back to the garden and they worked all day on trying to make it nice again. They dug and they planted their seeds and they watered them, and they got cutters and they cut back the trees and they made it look okay. And they waited, and sure enough, in a few weeks' time, green shoots started to sprout and the trees started to blossom. All of that hard work paid off, because the garden was starting to grow again, and insects were starting to have a look again, and bees started coming back and having a sniff at those flowers. And what they did next was they decided to knock down a part of the wall, and they turned it into a door. And they started inviting people to come into the garden, and they could work on the garden, and they could only take enough for themselves, not too much. And that was really important, to take enough for themselves and not too much. And so instead of big bouquets and baskets full of vegetables and jars of honey and rucksacks full of fruit, they started to take just a small box home with them. And that meant that everybody in the village got to have a little bit from the garden, and it meant that the insects and the animals that used the garden still got to have a little bit of the garden, and it meant that the garden itself kept growing and it wasn't being taken away too quickly. And that was the story of the girl in the garden. I think that was important. And when my nursery, or I think it was a primary school actually, thinking about it, when we wrote the story together, we were thinking about how we look after our gardens and what we could do to look after our gardens. And one of the most important things to us was about when we do really want to pick some flowers, maybe we should only pick a little bit so that there are still flowers left in the garden. And the same, we thought about our fruits and vegetables and how to look after them, and how to look after all of the animals that visit our garden as well. And that was really important. So next time you're out in the park, or if you've got a garden and you see something that you really like, maybe think about what you can do to make sure that it's there for everybody to enjoy in the future. I wonder what that would be. I think I have to think about things that I need to change as well. What could I do? Because sometimes I do like picking flowers. Maybe I'll pick a few less. Who knows? I hope you enjoyed our little story today. I know it was a short one today, but I will be back next week with a slightly longer one. At the moment, I'm sort of going through stories that I've written with other groups that I've been to in the past, just to see how that works digitally. I hope it's been enjoyable, but if not, that's okay. And I know that lockdown is sort of easing now, so you've got lots of things that you might be up to and things like that, and I hope you're having a really good time. The sun is out, and yeah, make sure you're still being safe. So I will be back next week with a different story. Who knows what? If you have any suggestions of what kind of thing you'd like to hear, then do let me know. You can comment on this video or send Creative Distance a message and they'll get it through to me. Or you can send it through my Instagram, which is @RachelTheSmall, and let me know what you like to hear, what you like that I do, and I will continue to do that. Have an amazing week. It is very, very warm here. I hope it's warm where you are too. Make sure you stay safe and have a great one. And I'll see you soon. I'm going to stop the video now. Bye!